Okay, here we are again. We have the Organic Mechanic with Kelp4less.com, and on the other side, we've got Harley Smith, the hydro weight champion of the world, and we're back at
Doing
it
it again.
again. That's right, we're back at it again, and we were just talking back and forth a little bit before we started recording about a lot of topics that our customers have been asking us about, and some things that come up, and we decided maybe we'll just visit a little bit about heat stress. It's probably a good time of the year to talk about that, and we've all experienced that with our gardens and with our crops, and all types of growing environments. Heat stress is a valid concern, and what are some things we can do to combat it, or to prepare for it, or to alleviate some of those issues and common problems with heat stress? And it's a common thing that happens almost every year. So anyway, we'll just throw it out there and see what happens. What are your thoughts on that, Harley?
Okay. Um, well, number one, it's best, this is ideal, to prepare your plants, condition your plants to resist the heat stress before the stress happens. And the best way to do that is for the outdoor growers. Indoors, control the heat. We don't have to worry about it too much unless they're starting to grow into the lights. But the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to use the combination of kelp extracts and humic or fulvic acid or humic fulvic together. Because there's been studies, we have proof, we have university research. Virginia Tech found that 5 parts humic acid to 2 parts kelp. I know you've even developed a 5-to-2 product that stimulates the plant to make 50% more what's called superoxide dismutase. It's an enzyme that the plant makes the enzyme. It's not in the product. The plant makes 50% more, and that protects the plant against stress. Heat stress, salt stress, drought stress, even UV stress. So we can talk about how that works a little more in a minute. But so my advice is to growers is look at the weather report. If you see that a heat wave is coming soon, we're going to have 4 days in a row of a 98 or 100 degrees plus temperature. Cut back on your fertilizer, especially the nitrate
Number one.
fertilizer.
Number one.
Cut
Yeah.
that back because you don't need that extra salt stress. You don't want to make the plant want to grow more when the stress is coming. And then instead do more of a fertigation with the bioorganics, the biostimulants. So we condition them about it because if the plant makes more superoxide dismutase, it'll stay green longer and it will recover faster. So that's my
Yeah,
first input. What
that's
are
a
your
great point.
thoughts?
Again, preparation is always key, and this goes back to outdoor gardening or outdoor farming. Is we have to try to set ourselves up for success. We know it's going to get hot. We know we're going to have these periods of stress. And in our fertilizer regimen, if we can include a lot of more slow release organic matter type inputs in our soil and have them in the soil and prepared, you know, weeks, if not months, before we know we're going into the heat period. And it's exactly like what you said. Cut back on your regular soluble fertilizer regime and let those, the non-salt nutrients that are in the soil that are released through biology and through communications with plants help carry you through the excessive heat times. And it goes back to exactly what you said, the kelp and the fulvics and the humics and the microbials, all that working together will really help protect your plant through these times of stress and heat and drought. And they're all working in combination together. The plant is working with the biology is working with the minerals and the nutrients to survive these times of excessive heat. So I totally agree with you. Cut back on the soluble fertilizers in your feeding regimen during excessive heat, and the plant will come out of that so much less impact on your crop doing doing those methods. That's kind of my overview of heat stress. We're not going to get rid of it. It's going to be there. Let's just set ourselves up for success to try to deal with it when it comes.
Yeah. Another part of that too, especially if you're prepping in advance, really think about root growth. You want to stimulate, we're always looking, oh, how big are my plants? We're trying to get bigger,
Mhm.
better, more yield plants. Yeah, we do. But if you're thinking about drought stress, you need more roots. If you have a good sponge, an extra root, if you have 30% more roots or more than normal, then you have a sponge and they can take up more water. So they're more efficient with their water use. So that can be done with all the same things we're going to use to protect against the stress, with the kelp, especially, and with the microorganisms that stimulate root growth. So I always say, even in hydroponics, any of the biostimulants, the root stimulants, the growth stimulants, the bloom stimulants, they all have the root stimulant in them because you want actively growing roots the whole time. Now, think of this too. There's one type of microorganism that we call um, ACC positive. They make an enzyme called ACC deaminase. When plants are under stress, they produce ethylene gas. And that ethylene downregulates the root growth and it downregulates the shoot growth. Now, that's not bad in and of itself because if you're under stress, you don't want the plant to try to grow instead of trying to, it wants to pause until the stress goes away and then start growing again. So, but there are some microorganisms that literally make the ACC deaminase. ACC is the precursor molecule to ethylene.
Hmm.
So those microorganisms will break that ACC molecule, rescue the plants from stress, and restore normal root growth and plant growth. So we have two sides there. We want to we want them to recover faster, but we also want them to actually have literally more stress tolerance, 50% more of their natural protectant. Now plants, I don't want to take up too much of this, but plants do make um, superoxide dismutase. They make that enzyme that protects them against stress. Because they make it, if there's no stress, everything's perfect conditions, they make enough to protect themselves against free radicals. But if they're under stress, the plant can't make enough of the superoxide dismutase. So, and when it can't make enough, that superoxide free radical will attack the lipid membranes, attacks the cell membranes, attacks the chloroplast membranes. That's where you start getting bleached out. Attacks the mitochondrial membranes. That's where cellular metabolism happens. If you can't make enough, then the plant's under that stress does damage to the plant. Now, that 5-to-2 ratio of kelp to humic plant makes 50% more of the superoxide dismutase so that it can continue. It's like an insurance policy that's built up against the excess stress. So anyway, there's two sides of the story. There's the roots, there's the microbes that will rescue the plant from stress, and there's the biostimulants that stimulate the plant to make more plant protection agents naturally.
Naturally, I like that word. And there's some things we can do culturally to protect what's going on in the roots and keep the biodiversity going. And I always say this on this podcast. I've said this a lot. Soil hates the sun. Let's
Hmm.
mulch our soil. Let's create a mat of something and protect the soil from the sun. Plants love the sun. They need the sun. It's that's their job, to be in the full sun. Now the soil doesn't. It likes a mat on top. It likes to be left alone. It likes to be shaded. That can really have some of the biggest effects to protect your plant from heat stress than anything else you can do. Shade the soil, whether it's straw or mulch or just whatever. Protect your soil from the sun, and it'll help everything you just told us about happen. And again, just a preventative measure, but that's literally the number one thing I would do on an outdoor environment.
That's a good point. Let me switch over to hydroponics for a second.
Let's
I
do it.
like to do I like to do this year or not because I'm retired, but I'm too busy this summer. Does that make sense? But anyway, I like to do outdoor hydroponics because the full sun. Hey, there's no substitute for sunlight, nice southern exposure in your garden. I don't care what the best artificial lights that money can buy will not replace the sun, you know. But I do them outdoors. But outdoors in July and August when we get heat, then the reservoir can get too warm. It can heat up, and when it
Yes.
gets hot, then it becomes more anaerobic. Even if it's you aerate it, it'll still the plant can't hold enough dissolved oxygen, or the water can't hold enough dissolved oxygen. The warmer the water, the less dissolved oxygen it holds. So how do you protect it? What I do in my outdoor hydroponics, first of all, I like to put the reservoir in the shade,
Hmm.
not in the direct sun. Also, I like to semi-bury it. You're talking about the mulching. I will bury it so that maybe only this much of the reservoir is above the soil, all the rest is below, because that earth is a nice heat sink if I can do it. Now, if I'm doing something like NFT, I'll just put it underneath the top and it's in the shade. But it still starts to get warm. It still gets to get hot. What I noticed though is because the plants are transpiring so much more water with the heat that um, the reservoir level goes down much faster. So I top off with the garden hose more often, and I'm putting in cool water. So I'm cooling it, and the only exception I found, and it's been works more than great. It works phenomenal. I've seen 6 inches of growth per day in some of those outdoor systems. But I've had people stop their cars with my tomatoes outdoors and literally come down, strangers knock on my door. I drove by on Thursday and your plants were this big. I drove by on Tuesday and they're this big. What are you doing? I show them. But anyway, on those super hot days, I'll get the real heat waves where it's hot and muggy and I literally will take this on small scale now for one system at a time. I'll take a 2 liter bottle of water, put it in the freezer. Now take it out, drop it in the reservoir, and wait. And I come back later in the day, I'm wiping the sweat off. It's liquid again. I put that one in the freezer. I take the other bottle out and put it in. Now I'm only lowering the temperature a few degrees maybe by doing that, but it's enough. And I only
Hmm.
have to do that just for a few days during the worst of the heat wave. The rest of it, just having it semi-buried, just topping with water, I'm good. So that's my hydroponics. Now, the other nice thing about the hydroponics, even though they're transpiring more water, it's still using a lot less water than you would in your garden because a lot of
Hmm.
that water evaporates away or just kind of goes down below the root zone. If we're in hydroponics, you're only using a fraction. I think I heard one report where it was 1/50th the water of a soil garden or of soil. So it's kind of the same principle as the mulching. You're
Hmm.
doing the cooling a little bit of the surface and it's helping retain the water better. But this is with hydroponics, it's that, but multiplied, say, four times as far as the water retention and water efficiency.
So yeah, we got to keep our plants cool. Plants are cool anyways, but now we can make them extra cool. Just little things like that. These, in some of our living water systems that are running around the country, we've actually been able to source an IBC tote cover for them, a heat reflective tote canvas cover that fits right over the top because more or less living water is a reservoir and it's sitting, above ground. It's full of water, and we've seen 30 degrees difference in just having this tote cover over top of it. So in some of these states where they're running where it's 110, 115 degrees, we're keeping that water temperature, in the low 80s. And for microbial and biology production, that's almost perfect. And so, yeah, just little things like that. Keeping the water cool will really, really help get you through those stress phases. So, boy, there's some good information here, Harley.
Yeah, yeah. There's the plants have evolved to be able to handle different conditions, but we don't want them to stall out. I mean, stalling out is one of the ways plants protect themselves. But we want them to, if they stall out, we want it for in a shorter period of time and recover and get active growth again, because we're help. But then we have to help the plants. We have to come into the rescue. We have to find the way to help them handle the extremes in a way that's beneficial to them, the plants, and beneficial to us, the growers.
Absolutely. And one thing that we have a lot of customers that do, they're doing kelp foliars, before a major heat stress, and then a kelp foliar after the heat stress. And just a small amount again, a quarter of a teaspoon per gallon, kelp mixture as a foliar. That has really helped the make the plants through, and it goes back to what you taught us about the biology and the enzymes that are produced and things like that. That's just another stimulant to help the production of those beneficial organisms. And yeah, we just got to stay in harmony with our plants and try to keep the environment that they want, and things will come out okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Now, the other side I want to say here, it's better. I like what you're saying about the kelp because I've I've worked. I've even made presentations at the National Garden Writers Association. That they rate all the writers for the newspapers and magazines and things. And one of my friends writes for the Detroit Free Press here, or the Detroit New, whatever it's called today. I still think it was Detroit Free Press. She was recommending kelp too to help plants recover from a wide variety of stresses. That
Hmm.
she said it did help them recover faster. That was her kind of magic bullet that she recommended to the growers of gardening of all types. Now I know it's better before, but at least if
Mhm.
they're under stress, maybe it'll won't help them as much as protecting them, but it will help them come out. I did talk to Virginia Tech that did those studies on biostimulants, kelp and humic, and they proved it. They were doing some tests on the tees and greens of golf courses. You know how
Hmm.
how big we mow those greens down. There's that
Oh
much
yeah,
leaf, right,
yeah,
for transpiration.
yeah.
But they showed side by side when they used the kelp and humic that they stayed green through the worst of the heat, where the green right next to it in the test was just totally browned out and crispy. So I talked to Michigan State University for their turf grass. I said, "Hey, this is some really good thing." Oh, we tried that. It didn't see that much different. I said, "Really? I know. Why is that?" And they said, "Well," then he stopped for a second. So, well, maybe we didn't follow the right protocols. What do you mean? We didn't even start until mid-July. you know,
Hmm.
you're protecting you're helping the plant make more roots. You're helping them make more plant protection agents after in the middle of the heat wave. Yeah, it's going to be beneficial, but not nearly as beneficial as if conditioned before. So that's the caution. I've learned that from the institutions, the academic institutions themselves. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does help them come out, but really, again, I can't emphasize enough, before the stress, and even if it's just a few days before the stress, it's going to be more helpful than 2 days into the stress.
Yeah, set yourself up for success, plan ahead, and be proactive. Don't be reactive. And it's a common thing we hear all the time is, what do I do now? Boy, if we could just rewind, go back in time 2 weeks, we could set this up a little bit different. Exactly like what you said.
And
Be proactive.
learn, learn from our podcast, and then maybe this year you're not going to get as much of a benefit as you would next year. So learn, have the knowledge in advance. You know what? I have so many people, growers, they call me or they email me when they have a problem, when it's almost too late. Like my
Yeah.
plants are dying, and then they want me to do some kind of a miracle to help them cure it, but the idea is get knowledge in advance so that next time you can do it right. And prevention is hard to sell, I think. I mean, it's not to me, but if somebody has spider mites or somebody has a big problem, they'll pay anything to fix it. But paying some money up front to prevent it, they don't think about it. But unless they have the knowledge, and then they think about it, apply it in advance. So what we're doing here, it, in the middle of, the beginning of July is still time. If we were doing this one in August, yeah, it would be a lot tougher for them to get the full benefit of the knowledge that you and I have to offer. So I
That's
guess
right.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I like how you say they reach out to you and they want a miracle. You know what? Miracles are made over time. Miracles are made by preparation. So, yeah, Harley, I believe you've done a lot of miracles out there for plants and everything. But yeah, there's some you just nothing you can do.
Yeah, yeah, it's not, at that point, prayer and fasting. Well, hopefully it'll work, but there's a better way. There's better ways to do it. Oh, work with nature instead in advance. Actually, being a good steward. Why don't we try that next time before we're praying for a miracle?
That's a good way to wrap it up. Work with nature, not against it. Be proactive, not reactive. And boy, these are great points. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and data again. And have a great holiday weekend coming up. I
Oh yeah,
hope you
yeah.
get some time off. I won't bug you very much, so you get some time off.
Brandon, I always have time for you. You never bug me. It's the highlight of my day when you call. So I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks, Harley. Good to see you again.
Goodbye.